What's up, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I'm your host, Mason Kinnahan, and today we are going to be looking back at Washington's 41-24 victory over the Las Vegas Raiders in Week 3 of the regular season. If you can't tell, I'm recovering from a little bit of a cold. That's why there's no preview pod earlier in this week, but we're back here. I'm going to bring you the best I can give right now of my analysis of Washington's big-time bounce-back victory against the Las Vegas Raiders. It was a game where, no Jane Daniels coming in. Marcus Mariota was going to be the starter. You had injuries on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball, some big-time stuff. And what basically unsure if, Washington was going to be able to win this game. They were only, I believe, 2-point favorites against this Raiders team. But at the end of the day, they were favored, and they should win this game, especially if the team was entirely healthy. But even though they weren't entirely healthy, they were able to pick up the victory. So let's look at here the first read of Washington's win. Look, it's a win, a huge bounce back win without multiple starters. And it really seems like Washington's backs were against the wall here going into this game, at least the most they could be early on in the season. Because again, it is early on in the season. This team's going to look a lot different 2 months from now than it is currently. But it's still, coming off that loss to the Green Bay Packers in prime time, you have that extra mini bye while the Raiders are coming off of a short week playing last Monday night. So Washington really had the advantage rest-wise heading into this game, even though they did have some key injuries. And you look at what Marcus Mariota was able to do for this Commanders team last season, you would expect him to have another pretty good game, which he really did. He really impressed me a lot, and he's been one of the most efficient. I believe he's been the most efficient quarterback in the entire league, if you count last season and the start of this season as well. He's been the most efficient quarterback. I know the sample size is pretty small. He's only played in, 4 games at this point, but it is apparent that, he's a very, very good backup, and I'm not sure how much longer Washington is going to be able to keep him here as a backup, because there's a good chance, in 2026 we see him as a bridge quarterback for our team, because, what he's been able to do in Cliff Kingsbury's offense has been super impressive. But not only did Mariota manage the game well on offense, the rushing attack was huge for the Commanders, rushing for over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. You had a big play from Terry McLaurin, over 200 yards in the air as well. There was a lot of things going Washington's way on all 3 sides of the football, really, because you had the defense getting pressure on Geno. You had special teams, Jalen Lane, that punt return touchdown. You had the Deebo Samuel kick return, the huge kick return to kick off the game, 69 yards for Deebo on that opening kickoff return. So some big plays from both Lane and Deebo on the special team side of things, which was huge improvements from the previous few weeks when the special teams has really kind of let Washington down. And, the kicker is still an issue ultimately, but overall, a lot to be proud of if you're a Washington fan, seeing this team and how they bounced back after a very tough loss to a Green Bay team where it never looked like Washington really had a chance in that game. It just looked like Green Bay was the better team, the more talented team, and the Commanders really just seems to, just stall out every drive. So this is a huge bounce back win for the Commanders. So let's just jump right into the offensive side of things. What did I like on the offensive side of the ball after today's performance? We'll start with Mariota back in number 8, right? His college number from Oregon. He got that after, Brian Robinson got traded and the final roster was announced. So he's back in number 8, and he looks really good in it. He finishes the game 15 of 21 for 207 yards and a touchdown. Only 1 sack he took throughout this game, which I'm going to look now. But I believe, yeah, he was only pressured 2 times this entire game. Only pressured 2 times. Biotish allowed to pressure, Wiley allowed to pressure. But that is superb stuff from this offensive line. Going into this game on offense, Brandon Coleman was a healthy scratch, which might have been shocking for some people. But seeing what he hasn't really been able to do in the first couple of weeks at left guard, you make that change there. You now have Chris Paul starting at left guard, and now at right guard, Andrew Wiley is starting there next to Connolly. So, Allegretti's no longer in that starting lineup. Chris Paul gets his first start, and in his first start ever, he doesn't allow a single pressure in 22 opportunities. So just superb stuff from Chris Paul, from the entire offensive line really going up against Max Crosby and this Raiders pass rush. I know this Raiders pass rush isn't as good as the Packers pass rush or some of these other pass rushes Washington will go up against here in the future, but it's still a great sign seeing that this offensive line can win when they're supposed to win. And they really did that throughout this entire game. They gave Mariota time in the pocket to throw. And then in the run game is where things really kind of just separated Washington's offense from Las Vegas's offense in this one. Jerry McNichols, 4 carries for 78 yards and touchdown. He had that 60-yard touchdown run. And Mariota had that touchdown run as well. He had 6 carries for 40 yards to finish things off. Chris Rodriguez was carrying the rock, 11 carries for 39. And Ja'Cory Krosky-Merida-Bill, 8 carries for 26 yards. Debo had a couple of carries as well. So just incredible stuff from this entire running back committee, I would say. You have McNichols, Rodriguez, Bill Krosky-Merida. All three of them are, picking up efficient yardage for this Washington team. And all three of them are I mean, you don't know which one's going to pop off and have just explode for a big time gain. I wouldn't, probably McNichols would have probably been the last guy I would have picked of those three to have the best game today, but sometimes that's just how it happens. And he really was a big catalyst for this Washington offense on the ground. That 60-yard run he had on that touchdown was just huge for this Washington team, kind of separated themselves out from the Raiders at that point in time. And so the running game, you just love to see what happened. Over 200 yards on the ground, and when you rush for over 200 yards on the ground, you're pretty much guaranteed to win in this day and age in the NFL. So that is huge for Washington. They controlled the tempo of this game because they, of course, had the ball on the ground much, had the advantage in the running game, and then also, even though Las Vegas ultimately had the higher time of possession just because of that fourth quarter, it really felt like Washington was in control from the start. It got a little shaky there towards the end, but really Washington's offense was just full steam ahead the entire time. And one other thing that you want to see with the backup quarterback you don't want to turn the ball over. We saw today in the NFL, like other teams that had backup quarterbacks you look at the Bengals with Jake Browning, Jake Brown, I believe it's Jake Browning in there at quarterback. He turned it over a couple of times, and the Vikings defense capitalized and scored 2 touchdowns off of that, and the Bengals just got blown out. And you look at some of these other, backup quarterbacks. Some of them did well, like Wentz for the Vikings today, but it is just huge when your quarterback does not turn the ball over, and that is something that Cliff Kingsbury's offense. Props to the quarterbacks, props to the running backs, have done a very good job of not turning the ball over in the regular season. I know in a couple of those Eagles games, there was definitely some issues in terms of ball security, but especially with the quarterback play, turning the ball over is very rare, which you just love to see because just turnovers are just so crucial and huge in this day and age in the league. I mean, they always have been, but it's just, of course, even more apparent now. So just great stuff on the ground game and making sure, of course, the ball didn't get turned over. In terms of the receiving side of things, Terry McLaurin, 3 catches for 74 yards. It was the big 56-yarder, though, that kind of caught my eyes and probably everyone's eyes. I thought he was in. I mean, the angles that they showed, I thought he was in for a touchdown, but they marked him down at the 1-yard line. Ultimately, I believe it was Krosky-Merritt who punched it in there for the touchdown. But it's cool to see Terry, having a big game. Now, still not, he didn't score or anything yet, still scoreless on the season, but 3 catches for 74 yards is easily his best game of the season so far. Luke McCaffrey, that garbage time touchdown. I know fans have been waiting for Luke to have a touchdown for ever. It feels like someone on Twitter calls their shot and says that Luke McCaffrey is going to score a touchdown every week, and he never does, except this week, which just I was kind of like half watching at that point. But McCaffrey finds the end zone. It was wide open. Some great misdirection on Washington's side of things. Also, like less than 2 minutes left. I don't really know, why they were taking shots, but I'm cool with it. They put up a 40 piece at the end of the day, which is pretty rare in this league at this point. So it is huge just to see Washington scoring, 40 points, multiple games in the last couple of years now. So that is just fun to watch. Chris Moore got a lot of snaps today. It felt like 2 catches for 25 yards. I felt like Chris Moore had a pretty solid game for the receiving corps. He had 20. Let me find it. I believe he had. I'm trying to find a snap count here, but he got a pretty hefty snap count today. Yeah, 33. I again no Noah Brown, but it really seems like Chris Moore has jumped those guys like Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane in the receiver room, because Chris Moore getting 33 snaps today over guys like Lane and McCaffrey. I mean, Jalen Lane on offense had, I'm checking now, but had 14 snaps on offense today, which again, not a lot. And then Luke McCaffrey on offense had 21 snaps. So, and a lot of those came in garbage time as well. So it really seems like Chris Moore is Washington's wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3 when Noah Brown, is not out there. So he's also stepped up and he's performed well in the time that he's been given to be out there as well. So just huge stuff from Chris Moore. He's improved a lot, and definitely was not a guy I was expecting, to step up. Someone that he's elevated from the practice squad. Was not someone I expected to step up at this point in time, but he's on the 53-man roster currently, and he's doing a good job. So great stuff from Chris Moore. Oh, I guess I was talking about the turnovers. I guess Mariota fumbled, at the beginning, which that was tough, but I wasn't really too worried about it. He really looked like Oregon Mariota, going out there and making that 40-yard run before fumbling. So it was definitely, not great to see him fumble. And I mean, he left his feet, which kind of costed him there. But again, I'm not too worried about it. I'm just saying overall, interceptions wise, they don't really turn the ball over a ton, Mariota and Daniels. Overall, though, this offense was very fun to watch today. It really felt like 2024. Quick pace, get to the line of scrimmage, make plays, pick up 5-6 yards per play, whether it's on the ground or through, quick pass plays. It was definitely felt more. It felt the most like 2024 as it has all season long. I don't know if it was, Cliff wanted to change the game plan slightly just because he had Mariota at quarterback instead of Daniels. But whatever he did today, it worked. It worked very well, and definitely the most successful this offense has been since the start of the 2025 season. All right, let's switch sides of the ball to the defensive side of the ball for Washington now, which this defense today was amazing. Amazing. Bobby Wagner led the way with 11 tackles. He had 2 sacks and 2 tackles for loss. Frankie Louvu had 7 tackles. Still, a little iffy in coverage, but that's what you're going to get out of Louvu. Daron Payne had an amazing game. 6 tackles. He had a tackle for loss. Dorrance Armstrong had a sack, 2 tackles for loss. I mean, you look at these. I mean, Bobby Wagner had 6 pressures. Daron Payne had 6 pressures. Dorrance Armstrong had 4 pressures. They pressured Geno Smith 28 times today. 28. I mean, 11 different guys got a pressure today. 11 different players. That is incredible. That is incredible for this pass rush. A pass rush that has kind of been very lackluster so far this season beyond, Dorrance Armstrong, who I think has had a good start to the year. But I wanted to see more out of Von Miller. Von Miller, we haven't really seen a ton out of. He doesn't really play that much, only kind of in pass-heavy situations. But he got a sack today, his first as a Washington Commander, so you love to see that. And even like Javonte Jean-Baptiste, the former 7th-round pick back in 2024, it felt like he was having a pretty good day as well throughout this one. So it was a pretty solid performance all around from this, this pass rush for the Commanders. They really got to Geno Smith, and I know this offensive line for the Raiders is not the best you're ever going to go up against this season, but they were able to take advantage of an interior that was really banged up, right? You don't got Jackson Powers-Johnson. You don't have some of these other guys on the offensive line if you're Las Vegas, and Washington was able to take advantage. I really felt like that interior was a weakness for this Raiders team. And even on the edges, right? Dorrance Armstrong continued his success to begin this season. Von Miller, like I mentioned, had that sack. And some of these simulated blitzes as well. And just bringing different guys except the front 4 that are, have their hands in the dirt. Bringing in Bobby Wagner or Frankie Louvu or corner. It really, messed with this offensive line synergy and communication. And Washington was able to take advantage. So big time stuff in terms of this defensive line. Again, in the fourth quarter, things kind of unraveled a little bit. I wouldn't really blame this on the defensive line. I would blame this on the secondary, which is just super banged up at this point. I might be suited up to go play against the Falcons next week because I don't know who's that corner now for the Washington Commanders. I mean, you've got Marshawn Lattimore exiting the game he's in concussion protocol now. You've got Will Harris injured and out for the game as well. Sanders still has been banged up at points this season. I mean, it's been a journey in that Jonathan Jones is on injured reserve. So there's just so many guys that are just, kind of not healthy in this secondary and just on this defense overall. So it's definitely, something to monitor in the future. I thought the secondary was okay. It wasn't anything special. And especially in that fourth quarter, things got pretty bad pretty quickly. Amos, I think, had a pretty good game. He was the highest graded player on PFF in terms of coverage statistics. I know that doesn't say everything, but I did think he had a pretty good game. He was only targeted once. Lattimore was okay, but definitely something seemed to bother him in that second half because he was getting picked on a little bit. Will Harris was all right until the injury. And then, yeah, I mean, I wasn't really that impressed with really anyone else at this point in time. Jeremy Reeves making that stop on that 3rd and 1 and kind of in the late in the fourth quarter was huge. Just getting that momentum moving downhill. That's what these safeties are just so good at for Washington's defense is the ability for them to move downhill and make tackles is something that Washington and Adam Peters kind of prioritizes in what they want in safeties. You look at Jeremy Reeves; he does that very well. Jeremy Chin also did that very well when he was here. Now this was kind of a revenge game from him. He played okay, but nothing special. And then guys like I'm forgetting Will Harris, right? The new free agent addition for Washington, which we'll have to wait and see his availability in the future now because he did not come back after I believe, his ankle injury. Could be wrong there, but after his injury, he did not come back. So Will Harris, though, can move downhill and make tackles pretty well. So that's definitely something that they prioritize in those like strong safety players that they want. So yeah, just stuff to monitor as we progress in the season. Other things on the defensive side of the ball that I noticed, I'll have to look back at the tape, to break it all down tomorrow morning. But Jordan Payne had a great game today. Really took advantage, like I said, of that weaker interior on the offensive line for the Raiders. I felt like this run defense was also great. You look at the Raiders; they only ran for 93 yards, but the efficiency that they did it at was not good. Genty 17 carries for only 63 yards. Zamir White 5 carries for 19 yards. It was really just Genty. They limited the big plays from this offense beyond that one Trey Tucker moon ball from Geno Smith, right? Beyond that one play, and kind of just Trey Tucker overall. Looking at the stats, eight catches for 145 yards and 3 touchdowns. I had him on my bench, of course, in fantasy because that's just how it is sometimes. But Genty, I mean, yeah, they limited the big plays from Genty. His longest rush was only 18 yards, and that was kind of a talking point, I would assume, in terms of the defensive line room, in terms of limiting this run game for Las Vegas, which hasn't really gotten going yet in the first 3 weeks of the season. Bowers, I thought, was kind of limited as well. 4 catches for 38 yards. He had that 2-point conversion. Max Crosby, I felt like, was limited. If we want to go to the offensive side of the ball, I mean, yeah, he was pretty much limited in this one. 3 pressures and a sack, but that's going to happen at times. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that is pretty much that though. I don't really got anything else. I don't think Dan Quinn has started his press conference yet, but keep an eye out again for those injuries and who's going to be able to play next week. Because I mean, you look at all these injuries. I'm just going to go through the Commanders' Twitter page and just the injuries that they had throughout this one. I mean, let's look at this. Trey Amos, questionable to return. So Amos was hurt with a calf injury. Marshawn Lattimore did not return with the concussion evaluation. Terry McLaurin injured his quad. He was questionable to return. Percy Butler exited the game. I mean, this is a lot of injuries for a team that has already kind of been hit with injuries. Will Harris, of course, got injured early on, or was in the third quarter, I think. But yeah, I mean, this is a team that was already banged up with injuries heading in. No John Bates no Jaden Daniels, no Noah Brown, um, and one other player I'm forgetting. But now you're without a couple of other guys in that secondary. I might go out there and suit up, and play corner for Washington because that's the stage of where the secondary is at. It feels like, but that'll wrap things up though on this week's episode. Next week, Washington will play Atlanta, which that'll be a fun matchup. Atlanta today just getting destroyed by Carolina. Who saw that one coming? I didn't see that coming. Michael Penix did not look good. They lost 30-0. Penix was benched for Kirk Cousins in that fourth quarter. Now I would expect Penix to play next week. I think this was just just sit Penix, just move on to the next week type thing. But definitely not a good showing for Michael Penix against a Carolina defense that is not that good. So that just going up against a Washington defense that looked very good this week. If they can put together two very good performances on defense, maybe I will start trusting them a little bit more. But they have not been able to do that really since it felt like Dan Quinn and Joe Witt took over as head coach. Which, again, I mean, it's been great, but it really seems like they haven't been able to put together two great performances in a row. And even this week, towards the end, I mean, they were banged up, but they were allowing the big play to Trey Tucker. Multiple touchdown drives. Las Vegas scored 2 touchdowns in that fourth quarter when it really should have just been out of it at that point. So that is pretty much that, though. All right, well, that'll wrap things up here on this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. Next episode will be out on Friday, previewing the game against the Atlanta Falcons. Kickoff will be at 1 p.m. local time. Is it in Washington or is it at Atlanta? It is at Atlanta. So it'll be in Atlanta, 1 p.m. kickoff next Sunday for the Commanders. But that'll wrap it up for myself, Mason Kinnahan, on this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. See you guys next one. Peace.